In the spectrum of American conservatism, there's a faction that champions limited government, personal freedom, and non-intervention abroad. They're skeptical of the surveillance state, hostile to big spending, and wary of both cultural and corporate overreach. This is the world of the libertarian conservatives, a faction that's been both inside and outside the conservative mainstream, and one that continues to influence the ideological DNA of the right. In today's episode, we'll explore who they are, where they came from, what they believe, and where they might be heading in a polarized political landscape. Part 1: Intellectual Roots and Founding Figures. Libertarian conservatism traces its roots to classical liberalism, not in the modern left-leaning sense, but in the Enlightenment-era tradition: individual liberty, free markets, and limited state power. In the 20th century, this worldview coalesced during and after the New Deal, when thinkers like Friedrich Hayek and Milton Friedman warned of government overreach. In the US, figures like Barry Goldwater and later Ronald Reagan helped integrate libertarian ideas into the Republican Party: low taxes, small government, strong national defense. But libertarian conservatives always had a complicated relationship with the GOP. They favored capitalism, yes, but they were uncomfortable with moralizing social legislation, foreign military adventures, and invasive surveillance policies. Key figures in this tradition include Barry Goldwater, whose 1964 campaign emphasized liberty over collectivism; Ron Paul, former congressman and 2008-2012 presidential candidate, who fused libertarianism with populist distrust of institutions; Justin Amash, the first libertarian member of Congress, known for his constitutionalist stance; Rand Paul, current U.S. Senator from Kentucky, advocating for civil liberties, non-interventionism, and fiscal restraint within the GOP. Part 2: What they believe. At its core, libertarian conservatism blends economic liberalism with social and governmental restraint. Here are some of its defining policy positions. Economics: strong support for free markets, low taxes, and deregulation. Think tanks like the Cato Institute and Reason Foundation advocate for school choice, flat taxes, and market-driven healthcare. Civil liberties: fierce opposition to the surveillance state, warrantless wiretapping, and over-policing. Many opposed the Patriot Act and the NSA's metadata collection programs. Foreign policy: non-interventionism is key. Libertarian conservatives tend to oppose foreign wars unless directly related to national defense. They were skeptical of the Iraq War and often advocate for ending forever wars. Social issues: here's where the faction diverges from other conservatives. Libertarian conservatives typically favor keeping government out of the bedroom, often supporting marijuana decriminalization, opposing anti-LGBTQ legislation, and resisting government censorship of media and expression. Government philosophy: a strict constitutionalist view, powers not explicitly granted to the federal government should be reserved for the states or individuals. They're the "leave me alone" conservatives, skeptical of both centralized authority and enforced morality. Part 3: Highs and Lows. Political influenced libertarian conservatives have never been the dominant faction within the GOP, but they've often served as its conscience, especially when the party drifts toward authoritarianism or big spending. The Ron Paul revolution of 2008 and 2012 galvanized a new generation of libertarian-minded voters, especially young men disillusioned with both neoconservatism and liberal interventionism. The Tea Party wave of 2010 brought many fiscal conservatives into Congress, some of whom had libertarian leanings. But tensions have always simmered. For instance, Rand Paul clashed with Senate Republicans over war powers and surveillance legislation. Justin Amash left the GOP in 2019, becoming the first libertarian in Congress and voting to impeach Donald Trump. During the Trump years, libertarian conservatives often found themselves isolated, critical of both Trump's protectionism and his embrace of executive power. Think tanks and magazines like Reason, the Cato Institute, and the Mises Institute continued to publish critiques of populist conservatism, defending a more principled libertarian worldview. Part 4: 2024 and the current landscape. As of 2025, libertarian conservatives are in an interesting, and somewhat precarious, position. The 2024 election saw the Republican Party solidify its populist, nationalist identity under Trump's re-election. The MAGA faction has embraced tariffs, state-driven industrial policy, and a more muscular cultural agenda, all of which are antithetical to the libertarian ethos. While some libertarian-leaning voters held their noses and voted Republican, others defected to independent candidates or abstained. The Libertarian Party, while maintaining ballot access in many states, remains marginal in terms of electoral power. Within the Senate and House, Rand Paul continues to be the most high-profile libertarian conservative. He regularly pushes back on foreign aid packages, questions the size of defense budgets, and leads efforts to reform the surveillance state. But overall, the Libertarian faction has lost influence within the party, crowded out by culture warriors and economic nationalists. Still, their ideas persist, especially among younger conservatives frustrated by government overreach. Libertarian conservatives may not have the numbers of the MAGA movement or the institutional power of traditional Republicans, but their influence has shaped decades of debate on the right, especially around civil liberties, fiscal restraint, and foreign policy skepticism. In a party increasingly defined by populism and polarization, they remain a voice for restraint, individualism, and principled governance. Next time in the Political Faction series, we shift focus to the religious right, its origins in the culture wars, its peak influence in the early 2000s, and its evolving role in today's political ecosystem. If you like this content, help a brother out and like and follow.